So usually. I don't think it's hard.
Hey, good, how are you?
See it. I'm good. City council actually. Yeah, they were, they did two. This is a brand new project.
They got to.
That was my understanding, that they said with staff. So probably the company, same hotel here, and the two scenarios, one by building 3 years, one with a. So we moved it. I think there was maybe some direction, not a telling state liability, but just obviously owners. You know, they will say. It's a. So you want to push it. And get them, get it. The consumer is in. Graphic search. But it's, we're playing to quality. We'll sort of suck it out of the rest of the market. We got the better player. Yeah. Famous last words.
Yeah, no kidding. Drastically different this year.
I heard, no, it's interesting, but I heard there was a mutual percentage. Oh, my.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Lots of last stuff, very efficient.
Yeah, likewise for getting everything to me when I needed it. I appreciate it.
I haven't been. It was just.
Is your
Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the City of Laguna Beach Planning Commission meeting of July 3rd, 2024. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten is absent. Commissioner Dubin,
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Here.
Chair Sadler.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, first we'll begin with public communications. At this time, members of the public may address the Planning Commission regarding any items on the agenda. not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the planning commission. No action may be taken on off agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes each unless extended for good cause by the planning commission. I see no one in the audience, so I am assuming that there are no public communications. So we'll move on to our consent calendar, which consists of the June 5th, 2024 draft minutes. Would any member of the public or any member of the commission like to pull that consent calendar?
No.
Would somebody make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
and Chair Stadler.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our public hearings. We only have one agenda item tonight. It's agenda item 5.1 at 401 Glen Eyrie Street. Are there any commissioner disclosures?
Met with the architect. I met with the architect.
I've been by the building.
Okay, Anthony, would you like to present this item for us tonight?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Item 5.1 is a modification to a prior design review and variance approval for the remodel of an existing commercial building located at 401 Glen Eyrie Street. The approved remodel by Farmers and Merchants Bank is currently underway with construction work ongoing. In February of last year, the Planning Commission approved a design review and variance application for building and deck additions and exterior building alterations. The Planning Commission's approval was conditional with a few aspects of the design subject to final approval by a Planning Commission subcommittee. The final design was revised in accordance with those subcommittee determinations. Shown here is the rendering that was presented to the Planning Commission last year, and keep in mind that they do not include the Planning Commission's landscape and color selections, and there were also a few conditions of approval imposed by the Planning Commission. Then on May 15th of this year, the Planning Commission reviewed and approved the first design revision. Most significantly, the Commission approved a change from Swiss Pearl fiber cement panels to smooth coat stucco. The revisions also included new window openings, eliminating a small ribbon of the laser cut screen between the first and second floor storefronts, and eliminating the new canopy at the south elevation facing the Glen Eyrie Street parking structure. In order to provide sufficient building articulation, the Commission denied the reconfiguration of the parapet wall and furred wall at the secondary west and south elevations. The images on the screen identify the areas where these conditions of approval apply. The red shaded area depicts the continuation of the parapet wall, as was required by the Planning Commission, and the area in blue depicts the Commission's denial of the applicant's proposed enlargement of the furred wall. The application before you this evening includes the 4 design changes outlined on the screen. Dunn Edwards Warm White would replace the previously approved faded gray at the parapet wall. Faded gray was determined to be a close match to the base color of the building and would have caused the building to appear monochromatic. The applicant is once more requesting to reconfigure the parapet and furred walls. And this proposal matches what the Planning Commission reviewed and did not approve at that prior hearing. Now, understanding that the Commission noted the need and importance for articulation along the south and west elevations. The applicant is proposing new articulation elements along those facades. This would consist of new louvered sunshades at 2 locations and new stucco pop-outs that would stand 6 inches beyond the plane of the building wall. As discussed in the staff report and presented in the draft resolution for your consideration and adoption, staff believes that the project can be found to satisfy the design review criteria. Among other findings, staff believes that the stucco pop-outs and sunshades provide sufficient articulation at those secondary elevations. These elevations are also only partially visible from the surrounding streets. Staff also found the trim color to be compatible with the warm building color palette and appropriate for the architectural style of the building. And with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the project this evening by adopting the resolution attached to your staff report. That will conclude the staff presentation, and I am available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there any questions of staff at this point?
Yeah, Anthony, I know we're in kind of a little bit of a weird position here. I did go by last week and looked at the building, and it seems as though the proposed changes were already underway or mostly already complete. Is that correct?
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. The sunshades have not been installed, but that second articulation element, the stucco pop-outs, that has been constructed at this time. That is the stuccoing over the existing brick veneer, which is not a true veneer, does have a structural component to it. There was asbestos found in that material, and the applicant made the decision to stucco over those elements. Now, the applicant does understand that that is subject to design review approval, and the Planning Commission is considering that request as though it has not yet been constructed as discussed in the report.
Mhm. Is it, in the time I've been on planning, I don't recall having really gone through like an after the fact application, is that something that's a new procedure, or is it something that's, happens from time to time and staff doesn't have any particular issue with that, or how has that been working in the past?
It's a rare case, but it has come up from time to time. The verbiage in the staff report was actually pulled from a prior staff report, I believe specifically from the Hotel 741 project.
Okay. I mean, it's I know there's sort of a balancing act here between, I know that they submitted their plans almost a month ago, and I saw that getting them on the agenda, that happened pretty quickly, but is there a procedural thing that needs to happen to try to avoid these kinds of overlaps, if you will, in terms of the after the fact sort of approvals to these types of things? It feels because this is the second time this application has done this, and I know that we're not here to be punitive, and the changes, it's not about the aesthetics of the changes, it's just about procedure, actually. So is there anything we can do going forward in future applications to avoid this kind of after the fact thing, which it's kind of a gray zone for this type of application to already having to approve a change that's already taken place?
It's a great question. There was a stop work order that was issued to the project,
Okay.
and I believe that the applicant has abided by that stop work order since the date it was issued. This situation is quite uncommon, I think, because applicants do understand that there's a substantial risk to proceeding with unapproved work,
Mhm.
and there's no type of vested right or greater likelihood of approval if they proceed with the work and then ask for the Planning Commission's after the fact approval.
Okay. All right, thanks, Anthony.
And Anthony, so this work was done after, it was done after our prior meeting, after the May meeting.
The timing might be a better question for the applicant
Okay.
team.
Okay, I have no questions at this point. The applicant team, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, commissioners. Thanks for having us again. We look forward to it. There's a couple reasons. I think the design components of it were described very well by Anthony and Stephen. We were able to walk it today. There's the four pieces of what this proposal is proposing is removing the ribbon, keeping the existing brick elements, adding the awnings and changing the color. So that I think is clear. We don't need to go over that any further. I can give a little bit of color to the justification for some of those. But I'll start with a quick response about schedule. Most of these components the brick has always been there, we'll note. And so the removal of the brick is what hasn't been done. But I think to the point of is there non-conforming construction that's been completed? I think the one point of the stucco over the brick is technically something that wasn't approved, but that whole elevation was approved to have stucco. So it's kind of a weird gray area for us as well. And that work was already completed the last time we were here. So it wasn't like we went out of our way to go and say, let's stucco the brick. And I think I want to be clear, those aren't pop-outs that were constructed or added. It was just the stucco team, when they were on site, knew if we were to take those brick out, we'd have to completely abate the whole area, take the level 2 tenants out. It's structural brick. We have to reframe it. So it was going to be challenging. And so that's a clarification on that. So from our perspective, we didn't go, I guess I'll speak for the client a little bit, is that they didn't go, we're not going out of our way to try to build new things. We just sort of have stopped and are here, but that stuff was already completed at that time. So, but the proposal we're proposing, before I get into the views and other things, I think it's important that the visibility of this elevation is limited, but I don't think it's the key point we want to argue. We're not sitting here trying to say, oh, you can't see it anyway, so who cares if it doesn't look good. I think after we met 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, we, as you guys correctly noted, we didn't really have the time in that meeting to do a full design shred. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, looked at it ourselves, went through several different iterations and kind of determined from our perspective that this proposal is a better proposal, I think, or at least it's a proposal that we feel very good about. The ribbon on Glenary and Laguna, that's like the prominent corner. If you guys just kind of walk that corner, you'll see it. That ribbon is complete. It has the metal panel, the perforated metal panels below it at both corners, which you guys correctly added in our original when we had the subcommittee with the design review. It was requested that we would add panels on the corner of the parking lot alley side as well. So those 2 corners they anchor the ribbon, and then the ribbon wraps around the north, returns down to the deck. So from our perspective, that ribbon is complete, and we like how it's resolved there. To sort of reopen it, it works, but it's not, we don't think it's necessary. The design we think is complete without extending the ribbon back over the ocean facing west elevation. And so then once we looked at it, we realized, well, there's existing brick here that's very cumbersome for us to remove. That is already adding articulation. And I know that it's hard to see, and the scaffolding on that side is still partially up. So you may not have noticed, but if you go up on the top level of the parking deck, you can see it's not like a little 2-inch pop out. That existing brick is close to 8 to 10 inches. And so it's a substantial, we think, articulation on that elevation. And then we think adding the awnings it's useful for our level 2 tenants because it actually provides some sun protection, and B, it helps tie some of the windows together. We think it's an excellent proposal. So I think that's where we're starting. After we met a month and a half ago at the last commission, we did take the advice to sort of say, okay, maybe this does deserve a little bit of a design shred, and we did it. And that's why we actually decided we want to come back today. If we do put the ribbon in, it is a little bit cumbersome because we have to remove the brick and the abatement, and then the fact that there's existing tenants there in level 2. So that's the key challenge, where that also from our perspective, says, okay, we like the design. We think it's resolved and complete as is with this new proposal. Plus, going out of our way to add the ribbon would be very cumbersome to construction. And then the third point is that I, again, walked that, you cannot see that elevation from the corner of Laguna and PCH. And then as you're walking on the north side of Laguna, there's maybe a 10-step portion of that elevation, of that walk, where you can actually see it clearly. You have to stop, go out of your way, look at it, and then you can see it. But 10 steps later, you can't see it anymore because it's obscured by the roof and the trees. So that's another piece that we took into consideration here.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions for the applicant?
You have a couple. You're still planning on putting the perforated or the laser cut panels on the corners, yes?
Yes, we just had to take scaffolding down because Public Works told us to do it.
Okay, do you have a timeline on when that might be applied?
Yeah, I think we're allowed to put scaffolding back up in September. So.
Oh,
once we're-
this was a summertime.
It's a summertime thing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was, it's just a lot all of a sudden hit. And so as soon as it's ready to go back up, we'll put the panels on.
Okay. And at this point, do you anticipate any further changes to the plan, or is this pretty much it at this point?
This is it, yeah. We're
Okay.
rocking and rolling. Everything's ready to be completed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I've had a couple questions. I mean, one, what do you mean by structural brick? I mean, it's a wood frame building. So it's not a thin set,
Yeah, it's
false
not a
veneer.
veneer. Like we don't have original drawings. We weren't sure. We thought it's possible it's a veneer. It's actually like mortared in, concreted in brick. So when we have to remove it, it's ripping off a portion of the structure.
It's removing the brick, and normally if you're using full size brick, then there's probably some sort of ties or something that tie back
Correct,
into
yeah.
the building.
Which triggers all the abatement that we like to avoid.
How is asbestos involved?
Do you know?
You have to come up and
Okay,
speak to
go
the
ahead.
microphone, please.
Hi, it was discovered during construction that all of the exterior stucco had asbestos. So all the stucco on the exterior had to be abated, and behind the brick is stucco. So they attached over stucco. I don't know at what point of the building that happened. So we would have to, in order to demo the brick, abate the stucco at the same time.
Okay,
So that's the problem.
okay. The other question I had is, I don't know, Anthony, if you can go back to that, the two pictures that showed, what we were asking from our previous meeting about, the original parapet ribbon happening on that west elevation. And then also the reduction in that 20-inch pop out that is on the corner, what's marked in blue on this. Why can't that be removed the way that we asked for?
Sure. No, it's a great question. The part where the blue and the red overlap, there's cell phone equipment in there. So if we remove the blue, we would still end up with a little dog leg of red on top to conceal the cell phone equipment. Does that make sense? And we think that that's a worse design solution than keeping the whole ribbon vertically down to the deck.
I thought I had read somewhere that whatever cell phone companies and equipment were there have abandoned.
Yeah, the Sprint equipment is more like it was in the center of that elevation. Those are all the equipment that's gone. That corner is Verizon wraps the front and the side. So Verizon faces north, and then they wrap and they have like 2 or 3 antennas in that little corner as well.
Okay, so there are not all cell.
Not on the entire elevation, but that little piece, there's an exact reason why it is where it is because there's a cell phone. So does that make sense? Like we would end up with an L if we
Well,
didn't.
I guess
keep
that
the
my
blue.
question was that there still are cell sites there, so other providers. Verizon is still there.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Verizon's there and is not leaving. Sprint, when we started this process, we assumed the same, but they vacated sort of recently.
Okay. I think that answers my questions. Any other questions?
Just with regard to the asbestos abatement,
Yep.
is stuccoing over considered an environmentally acceptable abatement?
No, the brick doesn't have asbestos. It's the stucco behind the brick.
Right, but so what I understood you said was somebody previously to you or prior to you there was an asbestos problem, so they just bricked over it, or they stuccoed over it, and then they bricked over the stucco.
It was probably before it might have been before anyone even thought to consider it, because the rest of the stucco also has would have had abate. So they weren't like just protecting the one area that had an
Right.
abatement issue.
And then you had stuccoed your current ownership has stuccoed over the prior stucco, which was over asbestos?
No, we abated the areas we did, just
Abated
not
all.
where the brick was. So when we pull the brick off, we'd have to.
So my question is the only area that hasn't been completely abated behind that brick?
But yes, so, but there's more than one, there's a few of them, of the brick areas. If you pull the elevation up, we can point it out. There's the big one in the middle of that elevation. There's one on the corner, and then there's two on the north elevation as well. Or
Okay.
sorry, the south elevation.
And so if some environmental agency came and said you had to abate all of the asbestos, it would require taking out all of those bricks.
Yeah, but I don't think that that can happen unless you touch it. You know what I mean? If we don't touch it, we don't have to go out of our way to abate it.
Okay. I don't know much about asbestos. I remember in the early 80s, it was just a nightmare.
Which is why a lot of times people choose to just do nothing or build something over it or.
I guess my last question is, in your application for tonight's meeting, it explained why you guys were doing what you were doing and stuff. And it was basically saying that, we can't do this extra parapet ribbon because we have this brick. It would be, and because the brick cannot be removed, that we would have difficulty, spanning over that brick area to do that complete ribbon that we were originally asking for. But it's really not so much that the brick can't be removed. It's
Correct.
just that it would be costly and disruptive to remove it.
You are correct, yeah.
Okay. So,
And I'll say this, that's why I think I started this presentation also sort of noting that original approval had the ribbon, but we didn't really have to look at it or think about it because we didn't have the same assumptions about the brick. But I think we like this design. I don't think we're trying to short sell this. I don't think it's the ownership's intention to come up with something that's less than good. I think their goal has been all along to try to, they're planning to be here forever. So they want something that looks great and represents their brand as well. And their goal is not to try to circumvent or cut corners.
okay, thank you.
So on this whole issue of doing stuff without design review approval, which is obviously kind of irritating, to the commission. Just to understand is it's you realized that the brick was going to be a problem. And you had your stucco crew on site, you had the scaffolding up. And so you decided to go ahead and stucco over the brick because it was more expedient to do so rather than wait and come and get an approval for that. And then have to mobilize the crews and all that kind of thing. Is that kind of what happened?
It's close, but I think if you look at it this way, I can't speak for all the decisions that were made, but they're remobilizing one way or the other. Because if you guys decide we don't like it, take it down, then we're remobilizing in that instance, if that makes sense. So the best instance is everyone's there, get the work done, and then
Cross your fingers.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm probably speaking out of turn. I don't think that's like the decisions that were happening in the case, but it's from our perspective, this was sort of like decisions to be made in the field. And I think the brick pop out, because that whole elevation was already going to be stucco.
You were
It kind of
confident
makes
it was the right design solution.
It's the right design solution. It's taken us a couple tries with you guys to get there, which is, we understand you guys need to do this job and be diligent. But I think we feel confident that this actually now is a very good solution, is the right solution.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to any other members of the public who wish to speak on this. Seeing none, okay, I'll close the public hearing and go to commissioner discussion or comments. Commissioner Dubin, you were on the subcommittee. Do you want to?
Well,
Again?
you know, I don't have an issue with, you know, your design solution. I know that, you know, at our previous meeting, we had asked for, you know, the continuation of the ribbon across the, that west side. You know, and because that was I believe that was part of the original proposal. So, and I know that, you know, because of this change to the smooth stucco, you know, without getting approval, it kind of, you know, from where I sit, and I won't speak for the other commissioners, it's just sort of the cart before the horse thing that, and as Commissioner Kellenberg said, it's kind of a little irritating to be faced with this kind of stuff because it's not so much about the aesthetics, it's about the process, and I'm not sure that, you know, I know things don't always move quickly in municipalities in terms of getting this stuff in front of review panels, you know, but you know, it's when I went by the building and saw that, you know, it looked like the work that you were proposing tonight had already been done. I just thought, well, you know, here's the second time this has happened on this project, and it, you know, I initially had some kind of stronger emotional response to it, you know, just because of what we went through at our last review for this project. You know, but when I look at it again, it's not about the aesthetics. I think it's a resolution that I think, you know, at least I could live with. You know, it's just the process, and it's, you know, I'm not here to be punitive with anybody. You know, I don't feel like that's a positive resolution to anything. You know, but it's and it's something that you know, maybe there's some procedural changes that need to happen. With how these things are processed to try to ensure that we don't run up against these after the fact reviews, which kind of puts us in an awkward position because I wouldn't really feel comfortable saying, okay, well, tear that all out and redo it. You know, I mean, it feels like you know, I mean, if it was a horrible solution and we were looking at it going, you know, aesthetically that really you know, really doesn't cut it. Maybe that would be a reason for that. But my comment, you know, I can approve the changes moving forward. The reason I asked you if there was going to be any further changes at this point was to hopefully avoid a third round of after the fact approval. So I take you at your word that we're done with changes, and that come September, we're going to see the laser cut panels placed on the building. I would be disappointed if those got deleted for some reason and didn't show up. So that's my comment. I'm not here to chastise anybody. I just feel like we get caught in the middle of these types of procedural problems, and you know, and I hope that we will avoid this kind of thing in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Kellenberg.
Yeah, I think we've sort of addressed the whole non-compliance issue. I thought I agree with the architect. I think it's a better solution. I thought it was very attractive what they're doing on the backside of the building with the pop outs. I think it's fine. I also like the idea of the resolution of the band and the way it wraps around and then dies back in and isn't forced to continue along the backside of the building. I think it's a more clear and elegant architectural statement by leaving it alone as they have it. And I think there's, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that it's not very visible, I think it's an adequate articulation of that side of the building. So I'm in favor of this change.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldman.
I think we're going to make the exact same comment I made at the last meeting. Not the optimal way to get to where we got to, but I mean, I'm supportive of it as well for the reasons articulated by Steve too.
Yeah, you know, I'm reluctant to go back, you know, on what we had asked for at the last meeting, even though I was not the one who felt so strongly about it. But, you know, once we came to that conclusion and, there was agreement to do that, then to, come back and say, okay, well, we decided we're not going to do it for, I understand the reasons. But also the way it was sort of presented in the application was that, that it was not possible to do this. And that's not really true. It would be possible to do this. It would be possible to pull that brick off, deal with the abatement of the asbestos, which, I understand it's costly and it's disruptive to the existing tenants. But like I said, I'm a little bit reluctant to go back on that. However, I do agree that this west elevation is not the prominent elevation. It is, you really have to kind of try to look for it. And based on the placement of the other adjacent buildings and stuff, it's just, it's not easy to see. So I don't feel is that the articulation of that particular elevation is as important as the other elevations. And ultimately, what you've come up with does add some articulation to that. I was concerned about that width of the 20-inch pop out at the northwest corner not being reduced the way we asked for. I understand that now based on some of the cell equipment wanting to stay in that location. Again, maybe there was a way to remove that and relocate some of that equipment. I don't know. I also noticed that there was a downspout roof drain that was concealed within that in that area that we previously asked to remove, but it looked to me, according to the plans, that was a new drain and not existing. Anyhow, the bottom line is ultimately, I'm willing to accept this revised proposal. Reluctantly. And again, would want to reiterate, that this is unusual. You did, put, your project and everything else at some risk by doing this the way you did. And, and to have it, now twice on this project, we certainly would not be pleased about it coming back with any kind of other further requests of revision. With that said, was somebody willing to make a motion?
I move that we adopt a resolution with attachment 1 approving design review 24-1114 and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Second.
May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, you are approved.
Now come over here. We're going to slap your hand with a ruler.
14-day right of appeal if somebody does not agree with our decision making here, so.
Okay.
Okay, well, like I said earlier, that was our real only new business. We'll move on to other business if there is any other business.
There are no staff reports this evening, Chair.
Okay, any committee, commissioner, or staff? I had one general comment, and I'm not sure how, how best to deal with this. It's just the, on Ocean Avenue, there was the restaurant that was originally Ocean Avenue Brewery, then became the Wharf, then became
Breeze and Brew.
Breeze and Brews, and now is something different again. And not so much with the recent business owners, but at one point and previously, there had been a considerable amount of complaints about the way that business was operating. So, my question is, when a new business moves into an existing business like that, and they don't have to go through a CUP process or anything like that because it's already been approved for that type of business. Is there any procedure or process where the city makes the new business owner aware of this existing CUP and what their limitations are?
Yes, that's a great question. The applicant would be applying for a business license. And as part of that review process, the assigned planner would be confirming if this is a use permitted by right, or if it's conditionally permitted, has a CUP already been granted to this building or suite? And if so, a copy of that resolution would be provided to the customer, and the planner would explain to the customer that those conditions of approval remain in effect, and it's important that they adhere to those requirements.
Okay, because for example, with that new business, they're doing a couple of odd things. Well, one, they're doing, I believe, live music, and I'm not sure whether or not that's part of their CUP approval. I know that was one of the issues with one of the previous operators there, where they were going beyond the hours they were supposed to, and so I'm not sure whether or not that was just a question whether live music is allowed as part of their CUP. Also, they've done this, I guess, this concept now to make it more loungy like there, and so they've moved a bunch of lounge furniture into the interior of the building as well, and also out on the exterior patio area. And my question when I was looking at that one day, I'm like, well, what are they going to do with all that furniture every day at nighttime? When are they going to move it in and out every day from that outside patio area? What they've been doing is hanging plastic tarps on the exterior of that that patio space to, I guess, protect that area from being used after hours or whatever. But it does, looks really pretty tacky, just to have round plastic tarps hanging down like that. So I don't know. That's just a general question about whether or not the city can review that and whether or not that's appropriate.
Thanks for bringing that to staff's attention. I don't happen to know enough about the existing entitlements to definitively say if they are authorized for live entertainment. I know a few of those businesses in that immediate vicinity are. Can't say if this is one of those 3 or 4 businesses that do have such entitlements. We can certainly look into it.
Great. And I saw that there's now this, the city council has passed some sort of downtown building maintenance or beautification program. Do you know much about that and what exactly that entails or what's going on with that?
The city council is moving forward with a commercial property maintenance ordinance. Our senior administrative analyst, Louis Lacasella, worked on that on behalf of our department. And I don't happen to know all of the particulars, but I do know that it is moving forward.
Okay, thanks. Because there are some buildings, particularly ones that have remained vacant for a long time in the downtown area, both on Ocean Avenue. I know there's the former cleaners building that's just been sitting there unused for for years now and deteriorating. It just looks really, really bad. So I hopefully that'll be one of the particular buildings they're looking at. That was it for me. Anything else, anybody?
I just want to acknowledge that we do have a new head of community development. So David Contreras has moved into that role, and I found out through the grapevine, we didn't get any kind of notice on that. It was just somebody unrelated to the planning department told me, oh, I hear that David was, so I don't know why we didn't get some kind of a little, message from the powers that be that he had been moved into that position, but I just wanted to congratulate him and wish him well.
And you on your
And Anthony, I was
interim.
gonna say the same, yeah.
interim position. or
Thank you.
We're
acting.
going to be cooking with gas now. Anthony is our guy.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion for adjournment
When
to
is our next? when's our
next meeting, which would it be? 17th?
No,
Oh,
what's today? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
correct.
I move that we adjourn to July 17th, 2024, our next regular planning commission meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes.
Thank you.
We